So who's in the room with us, and then we'll get started.
The training may be easy. There are 51.
We have participants from the Office of Professional Preparation, and we also have the pre-K steering team with us. I'm Janet Bach. I have Doug Cipoletti from the Office of Professional Preparation.
Good morning.
We have Rhonda Crowley from the Office of Early Learning.
Good morning.
Tracy Dalton from the West Virginia State Head Start Collaboration Office.
Good morning.
Scotty Ford from the Office of Professional Preparation.
Good morning.
And Melissa Smith from the Division of Early Care and Education at the DHHR.
Hi.
And so that's everyone that's with us. I know that we have several people who plan to be here but have emailed me and said they're going to have to watch the recording because there's lots and lots of snow throughout the state. Last webinar we had water crisis. This one we have whatever they decided to name the storm. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me just run through the agenda really quickly. We're going to talk about licensing requirements for community early childhood collaborative teachers. Scotty Ford's going to talk about that. And then we're going to have discussions about the implications for pre-K collaborative agreements. And then we're going to do a question and discussion on that. Then we're going to talk. I'm sorry, I keep getting a notification. I'm sorry. Then we're going to talk about the upcoming requirements for the Early Childhood Classroom Assistant Teacher Authorization that will be in effect in July 1 of 2014. And Doug and Rhonda and Tracy are really going to hone in on a lot of steps for that and then questions. And then we're going to just kind of do a wrap-up, answer any final questions. We are going to post this webinar as quickly as possible because we know that this information is pretty time-sensitive and there's lots of questions around it. So we're going to try to get that posted as soon as possible, and it should be within the next couple of business days. So I am going to hand it over to Scotty. You're good.
Thank you. Good morning. We're going to start with the okay.
That kind of has to stay up.
Okay, it has to stay up there. All right. The Community Programs Authorization for Lead Teacher. This is just for us to go over briefly. I won't take very much of your time with this morning. I know you want to move on to learn more about the new and upcoming assistant teacher application and the new regulations for that. So this is just a review of what's already out there. The Community Programs Authorization for Lead Teacher is the one, the Form 50, that's already been in existence for some time. Just click on yours. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. We apologize. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty, but we'll get there. All right. This is basically, as of just a reminder, the change that occurred to the Form 50 Community Programs Authorization was as of August 1st, 2013. This is for lead teacher, remember, lead teacher in the community programs. There is now a minimum requirement of a bachelor's degree. No longer can we accept those that do not yet have an earned bachelor's degree from an appropriately accredited college or university. It must be in one of the areas, pre-K areas, determined by the Office of Early Learning, Child Development, Early Childhood, or Occupational Development with an emphasis in child development and early childhood. They also, and again it will be on the Form 50 application for them to verify this information, that they have the appropriate at least 1 year of early education teaching experience. Thank you. If the bachelor's degree, this is the exception for the bachelor's degree, if the bachelor's degree is in an area other than one of these areas that are appropriate for pre-K, then what must happen? What must happen if you find a candidate? Yes, this person meets all the requirements, only their bachelor's degree is in art, or their bachelor's degree is in elementary education, K-6, or whatever. Then if that's the case, then either your county superintendent, if you're in a collaborative, or the community programs director must submit, along with the Form 50 application for this applicant, a waiver request. It is to be addressed to the state superintendent of schools. It will come to the Office of Professional Preparation with the Form 50 application. Just send it all along together with the application. But to be addressed to the state superintendent requesting a waiver of the degree area. If the degree area is not specifically a pre-K degree area, if it's one of these other, if not one of these areas listed, then at that point in time, that's when this waiver request must be submitted. A waiver may be submitted for the degree area. However, let me be clear, no waivers are being accepted for the degree itself. If there's not a minimum of a bachelor's degree at this point in time, then there is no waiver granted. This applicant will be denied for this certification. Once the initial has been issued, this is a 1 year at a time. If everything is in place, then each year, if they are not determined to have met all of those 6 types of area requirements, where either by coursework requirements or equivalent professional development, and they would list this on the Form 50 application when they first apply. There's the area in the bottom of the form, and we'll get to the form in just a minute and take a look at it. But if they don't show that they have met all of these required coursework hours for specifically the pre-K area, then they are issued only a 1 year temporary. They'll be on the 1 year temporary until they complete all of the 6 components. Then that would allow them to have a permanent authorization. But in the meantime, while they're on the temporary, which must be renewed every year, they'll have to show, let's say they were issued a temporary this year, then by next year they would have to submit a new Form 50 application for renewal and list the 6, either 6 semester hours of coursework they've taken, or in one of the remaining areas, at least 2 of the remaining areas, or the equivalent professional development, and they would have to be sure to submit all of the appropriate criteria, certificates, so forth, showing they've completed that. That's then reviewed. If they've met that, then the application would be reviewed for the certification for 1 more year, and this would happen until they've met all of these 6 pre-K components, and then they are issued a Form 50 application for permanent upon application of the Form 50. All of the requirements that I've just mentioned are listed in West Virginia Board of Education Policy Number 5202. Policy 5202 covers certification requirements. So at any time, your teachers can go out to the Department of Education's website under State Board Policies, number 5202, and then the section that's cited here on the screen. And then you will find all of these requirements that I've just mentioned. At the bottom is the link to the department's downloadable application forms. This is where you will find the Form 50 application, and then also for lead teacher, and then also the new upcoming application that Doug Cipoletti will speak to in a moment. But basically, this is where the applications are located. The applications have 2 pages. The first page is always an applicant information page. I've put this up here for, actually this is, yes, for you to take a look, and this is the Form 50 page. Here's the applicant information page. Every application has this to the department, to the Office of Professional Preparation, each and every time this application information page must be completed. To the right-hand side, the background disclosure boxes must be checked each and every time. The application must be completed and signed, this page, by the applicant every time, whether it's for the initial or for any renewals. And at the bottom, it says Superintendent's Recommendation in Part 5. If you're in this collaborative where your county superintendent will be signing, you would need to obtain the signature of the county superintendent in that space. If this will not apply, if this is simply going to be signed completely by the child care director, agency director, then this is the one exception where Part 5 would not need to be signed by the county. It would actually be, let's see if I can go back. Let's see, there it is. On the bottom of this application form, you will see the signature of the superintendent or director of the community program. And what I would like to do at this point in time is let you know this application page, the Form 50 page, has just been updated. We'll go out and take a look at it online. Out of here and go take a look at it out on the website, just as if you're thinking, okay, how do I get to this application page? We'll show you exactly how to do this. Okay, you just go to our department's main web page and go down to the link that says Educators on the left. When you click on that, you come across, and then you come down to Certification because you're going to get them certified. Click on that link. This is the Educator Certification page for the Office of Professional Preparation. If you scroll down the page, first of all, just to take a quick look, it lets you know which coordinator is over what application type. As you see here, Scotty Ford, I'm with the Community Programs Authorization 450, and soon Doug Cipoletti is going to have up here the new application form as that becomes available. But in the meantime, as you're scrolling down this page, you'll see the link that says Downloadable Forms. You always want to click right on the Downloadable Forms link. And let's see if that's going to come up. There we go. And it brings up all of the application forms. So you're just going to scroll down the page. If this is, again, for Form 50, for lead teacher, every time you need the application form, you just scroll down the page. We have a lot of application forms, as you can see. But down at the bottom of this section, Community Programs Authorization, Form 50. If it's for the first-time applicant for initial, they'll also need to click on this link, first-time applicant. It gives them all the information about for the background card, fingerprint card for the background check. If it's for renewal or not for the initial, they would just need the Form 50. They don't need that first-time applicant. There's a $25 processing fee just for the application form, the Form 50. They click on that. Again, here's the applicant information page that we just discussed, where if you're with a collaborative and your county superintendent will be signing, he or she will need to sign in Part 5, as well as if it's with the county, he or she will need to sign at the bottom of the Form 50 page. If it's not going to be signed by your county, just your agency director, then that individual would sign down here at the bottom to verify that all this information is correct. Now what's required, one of the updates is we must have an email address for the community program director on this application form. Our correspondence to our office is by email. We email the applicant. There's a place on the previous page, if you see on the applicant information page, we're asking for the email address for your applicant. I tell you, this really expedites it with an email. If there's no email and we have to send a hard copy, it just takes days, and that cuts off on the amount of time they have to respond, and it's closer to the point at which we would have to deny an application. So to assist your educator and you will want to be sure that the email address for the community programs director is right here as well. Everything's verified, that they've got the 1 year of experience, and now also the change is they must verify they have a bachelor's degree in the area of specialization or an advanced degree. There's no option any longer for anything less than an earned bachelor's degree. And then finally, if this is the initial application, they think they've completed at least part, if not all, of these 6 requirements. They need to fill this in and attach an official college transcript for the hours or the equivalent professional development information. If everything is in place upon the initial application right off the bat, they would be issued a permanent certification. If it is not, then they would be issued a 1 year temporary, as we mentioned, and then they would be given an email letting them know these are what you still need to complete, so they would know what courses and what requirements they would need to be completing during the next year for renewal or to finally complete that permanent.
Okay.
I believe this is all we have on the Form 50 again. This is already in place, so we're going to move right along. I know you want to really find out about what's coming, the new changes and the new authorization.
Before we delve into that, though, we're going to answer some questions. I know that there's been some questions already in the chat box. I want to pull that up and see if I want to see if anyone has asked to be unmuted as well. No, we look good there. Okay. There's a question in the chat box that says, will this process also apply to Head Start centers or just child care centers? This is the certification process that is applicable to community partners who don't have a teaching certificate. And Scotty, you'll probably be able to elaborate better on that than I.
Yes, just if it's a teacher who does not have, it could even be an actual someone who holds a professional teaching license in West Virginia, but not for pre-K. Again, this is pre-K. This is for pre-K.
So all child care teachers who are in universal pre-K classrooms, all Head Start teachers who are in universal pre-K classrooms either have to hold an appropriate certification or temporary or permanent authorization. This is a pretty hot topic that we find when we come out and do the program reviews. Oftentimes collaborative partners will not have, the collaborative teacher sometimes will not have the certification or a temporary or permanent authorization, and we have to, we're really looking at this from a state level, and the state board is really looking at this as we have it in, it's in policy. They have to have the authorization, or it cannot be a universal pre-K classroom. This process was developed to support those teachers who really, needed that extra time to get the certification or the temporary permanent authorization. So if you have any questions about specific scenarios, you need to let us know, ask us the questions, and we'll go through it with you. But every teacher in a universal pre-K classroom must hold one of these, either certification or authorization.
Yes, and this is for your lead teacher. An individual who does not have the minimum bachelor's degree would not be eligible for this lead teacher certification. That's where this new certification component will come in that will be spoken to here in just a minute.
Okay. Joan, I'm going to unmute you. Joan Atkins has raised her hand. Joan, you have a question?
Again, yes. And what she has to show is she's moving progress towards. Yes.
And the people that have already had
Joan?
Did she say Joan?
Yeah.
Yes. Joan, you have your hand raised. Did you have a question?
Sorry, no.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, let me address also, the question was asked about what about the teachers who had already applied for their initial temporary authorization prior to this change that requires a bachelor's. Then the answer is then they are under the original requirements of just an associate degree. If they have so much time to complete these 6 components, 2 of the components every year. If they did not have all 6 from the beginning, they need to just complete them every year, show that they've completed 2 more until all, for renewal, until all 6 are completed, and then they would be issued a permanent authorization instead of the temporary, based upon the fact that when they began this process, only an associate's degree was required, and that's the way they'll complete it. They do not suddenly have to go and get a bachelor's degree. No, 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 not at all. So it's sort of a type of grandfathering, so to speak. Whatever was in place when they began the process, they finish under those same guidelines.
we want to talk a little bit about the implications for agreements, interagency agreements, and collaborative contracts, because I think this is one of the questions that we address a lot when we're out doing the pre-K program reviews. And what we suggest is that as you're developing your collaborative contracts, you have a sense of which classrooms that teachers who will need the temporary or permanent authorization will be in. So we suggest that this process starts way before school starts so that the appropriate authorization is in place. So as you're developing your contracts, you shouldn't wait to apply until July. Each of those temporary authorizations expire on June 30th. So the individual who has to renew should be preparing for that renewal and submitting forms prior to it expiring. You know, I often say you treat it like your driver's license. You don't wait till it's expired to go renew it. You go through the process to renew before that happens. We need to, you know, you need to have the documentation in place so that you know that your teachers are appropriately credentialed before school starts, before you sign that collaborative agreement. It's imperative that everyone hold the appropriate credentials before implementation of programming. We have a question in the chat box. Some of our teachers have taken the child development classes through Concord College, and the staff is not being credited for them through the state as counting for permanent licenses. Somebody want to? So what you're saying is that the it's not counting for the child development courses. As
maybe that person wants to come up with it. Yeah, that's what Tom.
Brenda, can I would like to unmute you so that you can kind of elaborate on this question. Brenda, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, can you elaborate a little bit? Yes.
Well, the classes that are listed on Form 50, some of our staff, Head Start staff, have taken the early childhood development classes through Concord, and I guess the state is saying that the classes that they have taken doesn't equal out to the classes that are listed on the on Form 50. How do you guys determine whether some of the classes they've taken equals out to or falls under one of those categories on Form 50?
Brenda, this is Rhonda.
Yes.
Clayton has gotten syllabuses from different colleges, and he has made a list. And he gives that list to Scotty. He'll give that list to Doug. But he has a list of classes that are comparable to the content, and that's how that decision is made.
So basically, you have to match the course that you're taking with one of the 6 required courses.
Right.
So you really need to know which 6 required courses you need to take, and then, you know, look at the class that you're wanting to take and see if they're the same class. And if you have questions, you can call the Office of Early Learning and see if that is a comparable course or if that would count towards that.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Linda McBee has a question, and I'm going to. Linda McGee, I've unmuted you for your question.
Janet?
Yeah.
I really don't have a question. I must have hit the raise hand
Okay,
when I
well,
didn't. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other implications for collaborative agreements or anything that we want to address in this section? Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to the next section, which is the upcoming requirements for the early childhood classroom assistant teacher authorization. And I'm going to hand it over to Doug. Ready?
Yep. All right. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm just going to kind of walk you through some of the information that is available online, but I've tried to break it down in a step-by-step process. Let me start by saying that this new classroom assistant teacher authorization is for everybody, whether it's Head Start, child care, collaborative, county. This authorization will be needed by everybody. One of the things that people have been asking is, when do they need to have it by? And I'm glad Tracy's here to kind of help chime in, but the classes were opened up this year to get people ready. Primarily, the Head Start has a federal mandate, which means their folks need to have this for the 14-15 school year. Outside of that, there is no state code, there is no state policy that's going to say your teachers need to be doing this right now. Okay, so I just wanted to start with that. There's nothing in place saying your teachers are going to be penalized if they're not taking the classes right now. They will have the opportunity to apply for an initial temporary authorization starting July 1st when this authorization is actually available. So let's start with really just a couple of things. These are the steps to earning the, I know it's long-winded, the Early Childhood Classroom Assistant Teacher Authorization. If you say it enough, you will get used to it. Really the first thing, I mean, if you're trying to figure out, you know, where you're at this point and how do I actually earn this, the first questions to ask, do you have your CDA or your ACDS? And if the answer is yes to those, it's nice and easy. If the answer is no, the second set of questions is, do you have a 2-year or 4-year degree? Because many of those classes can also count. So if you answer yes to either of these questions, you don't have to jump through any other hoops. Okay? Come July 1st, when this application is available, you can go ahead and apply for permanent authorization. Okay? If you answered no to those two questions, you are going to have 3 available options. You're going to have the courses, whether they be college courses or ACDS or CDA, to actually earn the credential. If you are going the courses route, okay, most of you are primarily aware of the e-learning classes. I have included the link here. Those classes, when you visit the Office of Early Learning in the e-learning section, it walks you through getting registered. And I believe registration is open right now for the e-learning class. They're full. Okay, I'm getting the word that they're full. So if you have people coming in, again, it's nothing that they need to be stressed about. Okay, that Rhonda's telling me it's going to be open next fall. Okay. If they choose to go the ACDS route, they would need to call the ACDS phone number and talk to them about the requirements to get enrolled in that. The same thing is actually going to go for CDA. They're going to have to go to the website to get the additional information because those are just things that the State Department is not going to be in control of. I do see the message about the, temporary or permanent, and I know Tracy's going to jump in, so we will get to that. The application process. You're going to go to the same website.
Please slow down.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. I was looking at the clock, and I wanted to make sure we had plenty of time to answer your all's questions. The first little bit that I've gone through, I went through it rather quickly because it shouldn't be anything new. These three routes that I just quickly talked about are on the website. They are part of the May 15th memo from last year. So I kind of, if I went through them too fast, please refer to the May 15th memo and the website. I was trying to get to the actual application because I wanted you all to have a chance to see it. And I figure you guys are going to have some questions about it. So, and also my contact information, will be available. If you have additional questions, I do see that there's some personnel directors on here. Please call me. I'll be happy to take your call and walk you guys through this.
And we will scroll through the questions that are being included in the chat box. We'll come back to those.
So again, this will be available July 1st, not until then. When somebody applies, they are going to use, right now it's a draft form, and I'm calling it Form 41. This is actually a 3-page application. I did not include the applicant information page, which is just the general name, signature, address, things like that. They will have to submit that. If this is a first-time applicant, in addition to the $25 fee that goes along with this application, they will have to also submit a Form 7 and their background and fingerprint information, just like any first-time applicant would. This is going to be, again, a requirement for everyone. So even the folks, right now when you're doing the Form 50, if you have a first-time person and they have to go through the fingerprint and background, it will be the exact same process. But I did want to spend a little bit of time and actually show you all the application because there are a few things that I wanted to point out on this form. If you look at it, you'll see that a lot of it is somewhat similar to the Form 50. We did borrow quite a bit of the information from that form. Just kind of want to walk you guys through it. That way, if you guys have questions, we can be working on it this winter and spring so that we have a good rollout July 1st. The biggest thing up here is this question right here. If you can see my mouse going over it, the applicant is employed by the county. This is, there we go. All right. Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay, I see.
Technical difficulty. Sorry, technical
difficulty. If somebody is employed by one of the community programs, the biggest difference is the biggest difference is they do not have to take the state aid competency exam. This is important because we're actually going to be issuing 2 separate credentials. we had to factor in somebody moving from a community program into the county. And so what we have come up with is somebody who applies and is issued this authorization, whether it be a temporary or a permanent. If they meet the requirements and are working for the county, it will actually say county on their credential. If it is blank, it means they have not taken the state aid test, and so that will be something that counties have to monitor as folks move from one site to another. So that's a key piece of information. This, again, if they're employed by the county, then we have to follow code 18A48E and actually complete the state aid competency exam. Some of the other pieces on here are pretty standard. You know, what are you applying for? Which pathway do you plan on using? But going back to the top, really the biggest thing that they need to qualify for the temporary is, do they have a high school GED, diploma or equivalency? Do they have the coursework needed? And have they been hired for a position? Okay, those are the big pieces that they have to have in place in order to be issued the temporary authorization. So the folks who have not done any coursework, have not registered for ACDS, have not registered for CDA, have not taken an e-learning class, if they are in that position coming up for the 14-15 school year, yes, they can still apply for the authorization. They don't have to jump through any additional hoops, okay? What they would have to do for the next year is they would have to apply for renewal. This is the third page. This is to be used for both renewal and permanent application. This is where you would list the courses, where you would have to use the, you'd have to get the CDA advisor to sign off on the application. You'd have to document your ACDS certificate, whatever it may be. And so this third page needs to be completed. I would like to point out that this last, let's see, down here at the bottom, I don't know why it's doing that. There is a place for the superintendent signature or community program signature. Let me see if I can get that to come back up how I want it. There we go. Just down there at the bottom is where the signature is going to be required. This is eligible to be renewed twice, okay? So again, the folks coming into the 14-15 school year will have an opportunity to complete whatever renewal requirement they choose. They don't have to rush through it. They can renew this twice so that at the end of those 3 years, they can apply for permanent certification, okay?
There is an exception to that rule, and I think we will talk about it while we're
Absolutely.
here in that part. Tracy, do you want to address that? It's the 2-year renewal.
For Head Start.
Yes. There is a difference. This is a place where, depending on the pathway you choose, could implicate that for staff that are serving as teacher assistants in any Head Start collaborative classroom, regardless of location of that classroom. So what I'm talking about is reflective of nearly 60% of all of our classrooms statewide have to fall under and do fall under the Head Start Act requirements. I will project that in a few moments when we speak, but if it states in the Head Start Act that if an individual is pursuing a CDA, therefore, or a CDA equivalent, you have 2 years to complete. So if an individual is applying for this and they're in a Head Start classroom, they would not be able to renew it for the 3rd time. Now, if that individual is pursuing a degree, the program really needs to consult, the Head Start program needs to consult their program specialist
to ensure that as long as they're pursuing an associate or bachelor's degree, that they may indeed have the ability to renew twice. But so depending on the pathway that staff person has chosen, it requires communication between the staff person, any county leadership that may be involved with that staff person, as well as the Head Start program, to ensure that you are meeting the compliance and intent of the Head Start Act.
I hope everybody is seeing that this is much more than just a simple application, and it does take extreme collaboration from all of the parties that are at this table. We've all been working together on this from the very beginning, and I can feel confident speaking for everybody. You can call any one of us, and we know that it's going to be a little bit rocky. Starting now and moving through the summer. So we really appreciate you guys being a part of this webinar just as an opportunity to start getting a little bit of the information out to you all. The one last thing that I wanted to point out is that section of state code that I know a lot of folks have asked about, and if the exemption to all of this, the folks who do not have to jump through these hoops. Again, these would be non-Head Start people. If they're in the Head Start, even if they qualify for this, Tracy's federal guidelines dictate they still have to get this authorization. So this is for the other, and this is if they are eligible for retirement before July 1st, 2020. We did get a little bit of a clear definition as to what that position means at one of our stakeholder meetings, and that position was classified as in that same building, basically the same facility. So if they move from, say, the kindergarten room to the pre-K room, but they're still in the same building, that's going to be classified as being in the same position. So just wanted to throw that out there. That is the steps to earning this new authorization. One of the questions that I have gotten quite a bit from folks is, how should I post jobs for the coming school year? And I did just want to touch on that. I can't tell you how to post your jobs, but I can tell you that this credential technically does not exist yet. What I can tell you is that the folks who will be employed in your positions will be eligible to apply for, at a minimum, the temporary authorization. So if holding this authorization, if you want to make sure that they have it, I'm here to tell you that they will be eligible to get it if they have those minimum requirements. Did you hire them for the position? And do they have the minimum education? If those are the two big rocks that they meet, well, then we can issue them the temporary and they can work on everything else. So again, the only folks who have to have this done would be the Head Start people. And I did notice a question back up here about, let me see, it was the Head Start folks. And I think this was the question that I wanted your thoughts on, Tracy.
Okay.
If they're in the Head Start, can they hold the temporary, like I'm saying, so many, everybody else can hold, or do they have to have the permanent authorization?
They absolutely can hold the temporary authorization, but they can only hold it for 2 years, and then they have to complete the process for the permanent authorization.
Yes. Yes, so to clarify what the Head Start Act says, and many of you are aware of this because this actually took effect at the beginning of this school year. So we had addressed some of this at Leadership Institute if you were able to attend. The Act says that by September 30th of 2013, so again, this past fall, that all teaching assistants in Head Start classrooms, again, this is irregardless of location, must either hold a completed Child Development Associate credential as of that date, or be enrolled in a CDA credential program to be completed within 2 years, or have an associate or BA degree, or be enrolled in a program leading to one of those degrees. And so this is the language from the Act. I'll provide you the program instruction and information memorandum in a few moments so you can reference this. So again, this is what we have to go on. And keep in mind that the state e-learning courses and that pathway has been designed to be aligned with the CDA credential. Therefore, we have been using the completed within 2 years time frame for any staff pursuing that pathway to hold the teacher assistant authorization credential. We've been using that 2-year time frame, again, because it's contained within the Act, for any staff person serving as a teacher assistant within any Head Start collaborative classroom across our state. So as new staff are hired, this is why Doug is so correct, and I think it does show that we have been collaborating on this from the beginning. This requires incredible collaboration at the state level as well as the local level. There's never a bad question. It never hurts to ask. And so these county collaborative teams, as well as the leadership that may or may not be sitting on those teams regularly, really need to have communication and exchange of information and collaboration around what pathways staff are interested in, what credentials they may already hold, and work together on ensuring, because initially from the beginning, our state has tried to work very diligently and responsibly to ensure that no staff person gets caught without being knowledgeable of what the requirements are, knowing where to go to access information, and having local as well as state contacts to serve as a resource.
So to just kind of break it down, the people who are in Head Start classrooms, and these are any classroom that is under a collaborative contract, so it may not even be operated by Head Start, but it may be operated by an LEA, but be counted as a Head Start classroom through the collaborative contract. Those people will have had to start this process and show documentation of starting this process as of September 30th of 2013. So those people are required to go ahead and start the process. They cannot apply for the temporary or permanent authorization until July 1st of 2014. But they have to show that they're working towards it already. There's lots of questions about who and when and why, and I hope that we are able to answer those questions for you. For kindergarten classrooms, I know that for the personnel directors, this all begins July 1st, 2014. And for those pre-K classrooms that are not deemed as a Head Start collaborative, they begin on July 1st, 2014.
I just wanted to hit on a couple other questions. Michelle, you had asked about the summer class for West Virginia Learns. The specific courses that can be used for this authorization are not going to be offered until the fall.
The reason for that is because the content of the coursework, the teachers and teachers' assistants have to be in a classroom working with children. And in the summer, most of them aren't. So the classes will be offered again in the fall, and registration will open in the fall.
And those classes are the same for both the pre-K and K, and someone had asked that. Now, Darlene, you asked about the application process. It depends on what they currently have. Just because somebody has undergone a background check at the local level, if the Office of Professional Preparation this is the first time that we are going to be issuing some sort of credential to them. Yes, they're going to have an additional federal background check and fingerprints because that is in order to issue a credential out of our office, that's one of our policies. So I understand that may be frustrating, but that is protocol, and we've been doing this for many years. Someone asked about what if they don't have the 1 year of experience? Does that keep you from hiring them? Absolutely not. That's not a requirement for the authorization. The 1 year of classroom experience is a requirement for permanent authorization. Again, I hate to make this sound so simple, but temporary authorization does not require very much. We're trying to make it user-friendly so that we can meet what state code says, which is to have everybody credentialed going into the 14-15 school year, but doing it in a manner that makes it attainable for these folks. So no, hire them. And know that if you hire them and they have that minimum high school GED equivalency or higher education and they pass the background check, they will be eligible for the temporary authorization.
Doug, we also want to say they can't get the temporary until they're hired.
Yes, yes, that's why we started on the actual application with, we need signatures from people acknowledging that they've been hired. And let me touch. That's another great point, Rhonda.
Can't take classes.
Let's take your third grade person who somehow got enrolled in those e-learning classes right now. Will they be eligible to apply for the authorization come July 1st? No. Only individuals who are hired into a pre-K or K grade level are eligible for this authorization, period. So I understand some folks got into those classes. That's just an oversight. They shouldn't have been allowed in there.
They were filtering questions, asking if they currently work in those positions, and if they answered them yes, then they were able to enroll.
Brenda, you asked those folks who are planning on retiring by 2020. There's nothing that that says they have to provide anything in writing, but it's probably not a bad thing, to keep on record. So you'll have just for your record-keeping purposes. Do the aides have to meet this requirement also? Yes.
We're just going to kind of filter.
That's a good question.
This one right here, or which? Because I'm just going down the list.
Up at the top, LaDonna Rosenkrantz asked a question.
Form 50.
Oh,
that was about Form 50?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If LaDonna will come back to that one after we.
It looks like there's really only a couple more questions that I'll touch on real quick. As far as the WVDE producing an easy-to-understand statement, really, if this information is on the Early Learning website, it's under the facts and questions, and the information right here is actually essentially the exact same information that is in a nice flow chart that Clayton put together. So that is there, so you can provide all of your folks the same information. If someone asks about the retirement, as far as moving from one school to the other, they would have to move to that other setting prior to July 1st. Anything after July 1st, if they move, their exemption is null and void, and they would have to get the authorization just like everybody else. That's just for folks who are not moving now. What about the teaching assistants who could not get into the classes due to them being full? Again, we're going to run them again in the fall. It's nothing that they're, as long as they get a minimum of one class next year, that will make them eligible to renew their temporary authorization. I know Tracy wants to jump in here for her Head Start folks.
If there are staff that are were wanting to get into a course and were unable to, and they are working in a Head Start collaborative classroom, I really urge the employer of that staff person, as well as the Head Start program, if the Head Start program is not their employer, to be communicating to ensure that there's documentation around enrollment, their professional development plan, and so those things are clear for the Office of Head Start. It would require, I think, communication with the program specialist to ensure exactly what that staff person would need to do to ensure that they were in compliance with the Head Start Act.
So there's one more question about, are the classes the same for pre-K and K? And they absolutely are. They're the child development, preschool special needs, and
Early childhood special needs, early childhood child development, and early childhood language and literacy.
I'm going to, looks like there's about 3 more questions up here. I am going to touch on each one of those, and then I'm going to ask that if there are other specific questions for me, feel free to call me after this. I don't want to take up, we've got a few other things we need to go over. So again, feel free to email me, and if it's information that the general population needs, we'll make sure we get that on the website. This question comes from Kim. And someone just asked, what's the process for the folks who are working in a Head Start collaborative but did not begin the courses by September 2013? Again, they'll be eligible for the temporary authorization. So whether they actually started the classes in September, we can issue them the temporary this summer, and they can start fall of 2014. So it really shouldn't be a difficult process to make happen. This is a good question. If they completed the courses now, in 2013, 2014, and they aren't hired as a pre-K or K person, can they use those classes 3 years down the road? Yes, because the only thing that they're lacking for permanent authorization is that job. So once they were hired into the proper setting, they could use those classes. It's kind of the same thing if you answered yes to those first couple questions. Do you have your CDA? Well, if you have your CDA now and you're not in a pre-K or K setting, and then 4 years down the road you go into one, that CDA is still going to qualify you for the permanent authorization. It will be the same for the e-learning classes or courses that have already been approved. And this one comes from Linda Lilly. If the special ed aide is hired for the 14-15 school year now, will they be eligible to acquire a temporary permit in July? Yes. They would just have to apply for the temporary authorization, just like everybody else. And this one is from LaDonna. The special ed aide work with pre-K and K students, for example, autism class.
Oh, no, that's not.
Yeah, that's
that one.
My understanding is that anybody in these settings is going to have to
read me the question.
The question is, and sorry everybody, we've got different computers going here, even though we're all sitting together. So we're working across the table. What about special ed aides that work with pre-K, K students? One has an autism classroom that has K students in it. It is a K-5 classroom. The aide is the primary aide in the classroom.
If it's a kindergarten classroom and the aide is the kindergarten aide, they need to have the certification. If a special ed aide or an autism mentor is working in the kindergarten, they're still a special ed aide. They do not need it. They do not need the authorization. But if they are the classroom kindergarten aide, they need the authorization. I know in one county they had RN, a nurse that was the kindergarten aide. She had to have the coursework, but she was the only aide in that classroom. So if they're hired as a special ed aide, they do not have to have it. If they're hired as an autism mentor, they do not have to have it. But if they are considered that kindergarten classroom aide and the aide for that teacher, that kindergarten teacher, then yes, they do need to have the certification. If you have questions about that, you can call me. This is Rhonda.
And there, just two other questions, and we'll touch on real quick, and then we'll move on. If someone is eligible to retire in 2020 but does not, are they then required to take the classes? No. As long as they're still in that position, their exemption would remain. Can the background check be completed prior to July 1st? Not really, because we have to have an application to attach to that background and fingerprint clearance. Fingerprints are only good for 90 days. So there's really nothing that you could send in to me prior to July 1st because the application won't be made available until then. So please wait until after July 1st. And this last one, you know, as far as giving them time on the job to complete the work, this is something that they're going to have to do. That would be an on-site decision. It's nothing that we're going to be getting involved with. I'm going to pass
There's
this.
one more question.
Okay.
I want you to touch base. From Darlene, it says, if the teaching assistant is employed by a local board of education and moves from one pre-K classroom in one school board to a pre-K classroom in another school and is eligible, oh, I think you just answered that. Does the move require them to apply for authorization? Yes.
Yes, it would. It would require them to apply because they no longer qualify for the exemption.
Another question I want you to answer, Doug, is if they are in a collaborative and they want to move to a Board of Ed, what happens there?
And this was just to go back to the form. Try to zoom in on this before you get, well, maybe. If they're moving back, the county should check to make sure that if you're just checking a piece of paper, you would need to check the authorization that actually says the word county on it. If they don't have that, then they would be required to take the AID test and reapply. So it is possible that somebody could have 2 early childhood classroom assistant teacher permanent authorizations. We have to have that in place because there are different requirements for the Head Start folks and the county individuals, and that the test is the big difference. And we can't make everybody take the exam, so that's how we're going to separate the two. Anything else I can touch on?
Linda Lilly asked if we're going to have further certification trainings this year. I think Clayton and Doug will be talking to personnel directors later this year. I think there will be some training set up, maybe RESAs, or at least in areas in the spring. So yes, there will be further discussion.
Yeah, we will absolutely be providing more information. And again, if anybody wants to, talk directly to me after this, please shoot me an email or pick up the phone and give me a call. I'll be happy to provide additional information on this. And you want to take control back?
Sure.
Can't you just change presenter? Or does he have to do it? Or does he have to
No, it's here. Okay. Do you want to?
Can you pull up that IM really quickly so I can, and I'll have you scroll. I don't tell them.
While they're changing screens, this is Rhonda. I just want to let you know that if you go to our early learning website, there is a place that you can go to the e-learning where the online registration is. We have a section in there for assistant teachers and lead teachers We have a link to the forms. We have frequently asked questions that also has a flow chart.
It's the sticky tab on the Office of Early Learning that says
Early Learning, e-learning. So, and we will have information on there. The May 15th memo, and that's really the main memo that's gone out from the department, was last May, and that's what we refer most people to. That's how we answer most of our questions. That May 15th memorandum is on there. There's also flow charts. There's just, we try to keep the information on there. And when the form, for a better lack, since we don't really know what it is, 41 comes available, it will be on here also. We'll have the link to the form. But if you have questions, again, like Doug said, you can call Doug, you can call me, Scotty. We'll get it to the one who can answer it the best.
You want to show them the flow chart too, because there was a question earlier about some way of presenting to the staff that would be affected. So Rhonda's going to kind of show you this flow chart that you could utilize to review with the staff as you acclimate them with this process.
Right. We have the flow chart on here. Again, it's almost exactly like Doug, the one Doug showed you. This is for the kindergarten. We also have one for the pre-K. One thing I do want to say is when it says do they have a CDA or an ACDS or a 2-year or 4-year college degree in early childhood, they need to make sure that the courses are appropriate. I've looked at lots of transcripts, and even though they have a 4-year degree, they don't always have the courses that are required. So make sure when they answer yes to that they have the courses that are required. And there's a list of the courses on there also that they need.
Okay. And then Tracy, you wanted to show them the IM.
Yes. What Janet's bringing up in front of you is an information memorandum. This is how the Office of Head Start, one of the main mechanisms the Office of Head Start uses to communicate nationwide with all programs regarding expectations around a variety of issues. The latest Head Start Act was signed in 2007 by President Bush, and so early in 2008, the Office of Head Start created an information memorandum explaining requirements for staff working within Head Start. Now, this memorandum contains information regarding staff that would not be applicable for us. However, on the second page, if Janet will be nice enough to scroll down for me, if you scroll down, it'll take you through classifications, and you'll see right there it says what are the qualification requirements for teacher assistants. And that, in 3 bullets, explains what the requirements are. You will notice the time frame was 2013. So earlier I noticed a question was, do they need this, if they're in a Head Start collaborative classroom, do they need this by 2013, 2014, 2015? They needed to be working on that if they're already employed as of this school year. Any new staff that would be hired to fill in that capacity would immediately need to be beginning on one of these pathways that have been discussed this morning. Also keep in mind that there are implications, as Doug referenced earlier, around that 2020 retirement time frame if they're working in a Head Start collaborative classroom. So I wanted to provide this to you. It will be provided and eligible through the recording and through where the resources will be located. If you have further questions, if you are not familiar with how to use the national website for Head Start, your Head Start program and partner does know how to do that and could provide that to you, as well as my office or the pre-K steering team would also be able to get you this information.
Carol Hamrick, you've had your hand up for 10 minutes. I'm sure your arm is really sore. I'm kidding. I'm going to unmute you to see if you had a follow-up question. Carol?
Hi. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I forgot I'd had my hand raised for that long. My question is about the pay. I had been told at one point that if they apply for this temporary authorization, that they will be reclassified in a different pay grade? Do we have any more information on that?
That is right. I do know that Jackie Long has been working with the legislature even to try to get some other changes, but at this point, that is correct. It will be a new classification.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
I see Mary Ann's question here about giving preference. Not really, whether someone has temporary or permanent, because they are essentially the exact same credential. So you would need to look at you'd need to look at your hiring matrix to determine what other criteria a person being hired will be evaluated on. You mean over someone that has the credential? Thank you for typing that very quickly. Again, because that other person coming into it, there's a good chance that they would be eligible for the authorization. So you would once again need to look at your overall hiring criteria.
Michelle Martin, I saw your question. They will be a new classification when they're hired. When they begin taking the classes, they will get the pay increase.
Can we answer the question about if they fail to complete the coursework?
Another question. If a teaching assistant fails to enroll or complete coursework after they have temporary authorization, should this person be terminated? It's kind of the same way you do teachers that teach on permit. If they don't get their 6 hours, what happens to them? They either transfer to another position or they're terminated. Is that right, Scotty?
Generally, yes. I mean, there is that exception where the agency director or county superintendent could choose to request a waiver of the 6 hours for extenuating circumstances, but whether or not that would be approved once it is received here is the question. Obviously, Clayton's office would have to review that as well to decide if that would be an allowance that could be made.
Also, I've been asked, not here, I've also been asked the question, what if they don't pass? They took the class, completed the class, and they don't pass. It's kind of the same. They didn't get the 3 hours credit. So
the only way we could renew a certificate if they did not have everything in place for that renewal would be if a waiver request accompanied it, and then if it met the approval process.
Mm-hmm. I'd also like to say in regards to a waiver of the requirements under the Head Start Act, I am not personally knowledgeable of any such waiver being granted under the requirements for the Head Start Act. That would be something that each Head Start program would have to communicate with their program specialist at the regional office and allow the Office of Head Start to make a determination on.
But that may include an employee that is a collaborative employee and maybe employed, I mean, with the LEA as well, if they're in contract with Head Start.
Yes. So hopefully a theme through this webinar today is that it is important to be thinking about and be knowledgeable of not only who the employer of the staff person is, but whether the classroom or not they are working in is collaborative with Head Start. There are varying degrees of minor differences that are important to be aware of, to communicate with staff and collaborate around.
I also encourage you to let your teachers know they have to apply for the temporary authorization in July. I've gotten a lot of phone calls this week from teachers that had no idea they needed to apply for anything. So make sure that word gets out, because I know they leave in May or June this year, and it will be July.
Okay, I know that we're over 17 minutes over, so we apologize for consuming so much time. We know that this is just really the first major discussion about this. There will be more opportunities. Our recess spring meetings for the pre-K population, and then also follow-up training with the Office of Certification. It will happen. We wanted to just kind of get all of this out there and really kind of just start to lay the groundwork for disseminating the information. So we're going to finish up for today. We appreciate you being so patient and taking the time. And we just wanted to end with a thank you for your time and let you know that Doug and Rhonda are going to have a booth at Celebrating Connections to answer individualized questions. And, you know, if you do have any questions, like Doug said earlier, please don't hesitate to call the Office of Early Learning or call the Office of Certification or pop an email. We know that this is a very confusing process, and we just want to make sure that everyone gets the information. So we're going to end. You all have a good day, and let us know if you have questions.